28 years later has, I think, the best cameo of 2025. It's a bit of a spoiler, so we'll save it a little bit, but I think this actor, I did not see him coming into this spot in the movie towards the very end. I was excited to see him, but I love 28 years later. It's a lot of fun. It really feels like it's connected to the first film. Anthony, what did you think?
I gotta say, I loved 28 years later. I do have a couple of things to talk about, a couple of issues, but otherwise, one of my most anticipated films for the year. I was so excited for Danny Boyle to be back, and he did not disappoint, being one of the most energetic, visceral, and dynamic directors working today. And he brought some new things that we've never seen in filmmaking before in 28 years later. I thought it was a really superb sequel, great characters, a really touching story, some really cool highbrow discussions, highbrow art in a horror film that I was not expecting, talking about the third act.
Super highbrow.
And it has a very controversial ending and kind of third act, but I gotta say, I enjoyed it through and through. It was energetic, propulsive, gory, lots of eggplants, lots of zombie eggplants in this movie dangling around. Overall, it was a blast.
The eggplants from the alpha zombies are actually prosthetics. So legally, they can't go fully nude on set with the actors who play the alpha zombies in 28 years later because there is a child on set. So legally, you can have nudity if it's covered up. So the actors who were playing the alphas in 28 years later were wearing prosthetics, similar to Mark Wahlberg in Boogie Nights.
He denies that, though. He says he wasn't.
No, it's true. He admitted it.
But even without a kid, like those things, it's gonna hit a tree or something. All the running
the
around.
memes are great. I think my favorite meme, it's like the Willem Dafoe as Vincent Van Gogh, and like there's a shadow of like when you're seeing an alpha zombie approach you. But I overall, I think what was really special about this movie, I also have some critiques as well, was how well it connected to the first film, 28 Days Later. There are actually little snippets of footage from 28 weeks later in this movie, of specifically when they're on the rooftop targeting everyone in the crowds, zombies and humans, when they go code red in that film, and Jeremy Renner's sniper has to be part of the people to shoot everything that moves. They actually cut to that a few times. And Danny Boyle, like you said, one of the most exciting, energetic, visceral filmmakers, really did some cool, surrealistic things. I think the alpha zombies in general were a great idea from Alex Garland of what would happen if this virus was going to start evolve. And now we have what I'm looking at as sort of obviously a more intelligent zombie or infected. But here, for me, it feels like 28 years later, they're going back in time, maybe the start of evolution of mankind, where this movie, they feel like Neanderthals, almost cavemen, minimal intelligence. They're procreating, they're having families, they're having children, and they even seem to have emotional connections to each other. So I feel like they're going to the caveman Neanderthal, and I wonder if it's going to set up a quicker stage of evolution for the virus in the infected, where maybe in the third film, the fourth film, fifth film, they'll be more intelligent every film as the story progresses to the point maybe near human intelligence.
Hopefully it's not like the orcs in Rings of Power. We aren't there yet.
I really want to go to war. I need some PTO, man. Like, I was promised a vacation next week.
But I love the zombies. I love the alphas. I like the idea of the evolution. And the alphas are just terrifying because they're colossal and they rip people's spines out through their skulls. And I really liked... Danny Boyle is so exciting as a filmmaker, and he brought so many new elements. First of all, the iPhone footage looks fantastic, and your eyes adjust to it pretty quickly. I was well adjusted to the slightly different frame look and the dynamic range. I was adjusted.
Exposure, you could tell, is a little different.
I got used to it within a minute or so, then I was good. But otherwise, the filmmaking was phenomenal. There were so many great surrealist elements, like he depicted zombies and alphas in this beautiful, like, red light. Almost like not green light.
It's infrared red. So what
light.
It felt like to me is sort of like when you're watching a nature channel and it's like deer or mountain lions in the middle of the night.
It was so cool. They did that a few times, and the bullet time with the iPhones looked fantastic. He did it for almost every zombie kill with the bow and arrow, and it just looked phenomenal. I love the characters. I thought he's not getting a ton of love. Aaron Taylor Johnson, I thought was fantastic, and he really carried the first 40 minutes of this movie. And then the actor Alfie, I can't remember his last name, who plays his son, did an excellent job holding his own opposite these amazing veteran actors. Jodie Comer is amazing in this film. And then Ralph Fiennes is surprisingly delightful in this movie, which I was not expecting. His character has such a great amount of charisma, intelligence, and a breadth of levity that horror films really can use when things are so grim and grimy and dark and bloody. So Ralph Fiennes was a really nice breath of fresh air.
Alfie Williams is
Alfie
his name,
Williams.
newcomer. And Rotten Tomatoes, 28 years later, is doing very well with critics. It's 89% score. Audiences, it's a bit, lukewarm at 64% audience score. IMDb, it's a 7.2. Letterboxd 3.6, both very respectable numbers for horror films. Danny Boyle comes back to direct this film from script writer and screenwriter director Alex Garland, who wrote the original film, obviously, that Danny Boyle directed. Now, 28 years later, obviously takes place 28 years after the rage virus outbreak in England. 12-year-old Spike lives in a small community on Holy Island, isolated from a quarantined Briton, driven to save his ailing mother, Isla. Spike defies the island's rules and embarks on a perilous journey to find Dr. Ian Kelson, a mysterious hermit. And this is the first installment of a planned trilogy. The second film is already shot, and I'm sure it's pretty close to done because it comes out in January 2026. Nia DaCosta is the director of that. In the second and third films of this new trilogy will also feature Cillian Murphy. He's not in this film at all, but he is an executive producer on this film. And also, this film retcons 28 Weeks Later's ending, where the virus spread to Europe. Obviously, that ending when it's the kind of found footage of the infected running across Paris and in front of the Eiffel Tower. Now, we've maintained the ending where that didn't happen, where Britain's quarantined, aligning with the Brexit allegory. Plus, we obviously can see planes still in the sky. Great references to the first film of the franchise. And overall, had a great time with this movie. The horror was really solid. I think the gore and the sound design were superb. Whenever arrows were going through zombies was one of my favorite parts of the film. I agree. Aaron Taylor Johnson, I think, was probably my favorite character in the film. I will say I was disappointed that the character was basically put on a shelf for the second half of the film. He kind of just disappeared, basically. Mm-hmm. But overall, I think Alfie Williams did such a great job as a lead, as a 14-year-old, I believe, when he was or 13 years old when he was acting in this film, as Spike, the son. And just to really bring up that cameo that I was talking about at the beginning of the episode, I think we're far enough in that, I'm going to spoil the ending, just this great cameo. But first, if you see this great 28 years later poster over my shoulder, if you're wondering where I got that, it was from movieposters.com, our great sponsor. Use our code Raiders10 at checkout today. Plus, we have an affiliate link with movieposters.com. That link will be in our episode description of all of our episodes, as well as our Instagram bio. Click that link. This link helps us get commission on all purchases used there by you guys. So use our code, use our link, movieposters.com, to get all of your posters today. Now, the cameo was Jack O'Connell as Jimmy, who basically plays the young boy in the opening of this movie, where we're back to the original outbreak, 28 days after the original outbreak. A little boy in Scotland on the run from zombies, who finds his father inside of a church praying and thinking that, like, oh, I'm being saved. This is salvation, basically, which is a really interesting perspective to take. But then Jimmy goes on the run, takes the gold cross his father, the priest, gives him. End of the film, shows up wearing that cross upside down. So fun.
This is one of many connections to British culture and history that the film did an amazing job portraying. Now, the Brits are loving this film because it has a lot of DNA to their culture, and a lot of Americans, it's going over their heads. So this character is one of them. I'll break down who he is playing, who he's inspired by. He's inspired by a real-life English person who was like a real-life monster. We'll get to that in a second, but the first big thing that we saw in the trailers, and takes a lot of time in the movie, is if you think about, there's that silhouetted valley with the sycamore tree, and the alpha's chilling there with his squad. And then Aaron Taylor Johnson and his son,
Rise, my squad.
They're hiding in the attic, and the alpha's still next to that tree. That tree was all over the marketing. It has a lot of screen time in this movie. That is actually a very significant tree in British culture. It's called the Sycamore Gap. Those two hills that make a gap of a valley with the tree in it. That was a real tree in England. It was famous. It was there for 150 years. It was called the Sycamore Gap, and then two guys illegally cut it down just as a fuck you to England.
British people or
two British guys? They cut the sycamore tree down, and then the entire country was like really upset about it because it was like a staple. It was a landmark. It was a part of their culture. The Sycamore Gap with the sycamore tree there, and so Danny Boyle. Essentially, this film is a new kind of alternate reality of England and of the world. In the world of the rage virus, those guys never cut down the tree, so the tree's still there. It's also an amazing aspect of British culture that everybody there knows, but for us, we just see a tree.
That's interesting. It's like if you watch a movie before the year 2001 that's set in New York, you'll see the Twin Towers all over that film. And I believe there's been some movies that show the Twin Towers that were made more recently, but it takes place in an era before 2001.
100%. And in terms of warfare, the first act of this movie, it tied to the war history of England, of at least in the last 100 years. We got a lot of clips of footage from a couple of films depicting warfare, and then also footage from World War I and World War II. And this sequence of this island basically being quarantined and England being quarantined from the rest of the world, it made you, it was reminiscent of Dunkirk, of the English and American and French soldiers stuck on the shores of Dunkirk, and also basically England kind of being surrounded by the Nazis. Nazis had taken over a lot of Europe, and so it was just kind of them on their own for a little bit. So you can allude to them going to war against the Nazis and in World War I. So I thought that Danny Boyle threw in so much incredible footage from these things of British history that really made this feel like it was England going through this another war.
Yeah, the Henry V stuff was really interesting from that old film, especially whenever they were on the battlefield shooting arrows. Same thing, they would basically cross-cut that with Spike and his father if they were getting ready with the bow and arrows, and they would cut to Henry V with the arrows on the battlefield. I thought that was really cool.
So awesome. Yeah. Now let's get into Jack O'Connell. Who is Jack O'Connell playing? This crazy, wild, long blonde-haired, jumpsuit-wearing, jeweled-up thug who seems like a Green Street hooligan in this dystopian era England because of the rage virus. He's got this crew. And in this moment of the film, it's so different. It's got a different energy and vibe to it. It's pretty funny and highly energetic and really silly, too.
It felt like Hit Girl's first scene of killing in Kick-Ass when she saves him.
And his entire crew, they're all wearing jumpsuits but different colors, so it reminded me of the Teletubbies that he was watching when he was a kid. The last TV show he ever watched when all his friends got killed, they were all wearing Teletubby colors. So that's what I thought of immediately. Now, this character, we're not sure if it exactly is this person, but it is absolutely 100% inspired by a real-life person from British history called Jimmy Savile. Jimmy Savile, from the 1970s to the early 2010s, was a DJ, an entrepreneur, media personality, an extremely famous person in England. He was well known for his philanthropic endeavors, and when he passed away, however, investigations came into light where they uncovered and unearthed decades worth of abuse that he put onto people. He was probably literally one of the worst abusers in the entire world in his era.
What kind of abuse? Like
sexual assault and sexual abuse of children mostly. And he had hundreds of victims, all covered up at the time because he had very influential figures and friends in his pocket. He was friends with government officials, friends with wealthy people, friends with celebrities, and everything was covered up and buried away. He was basically Epstein. He's like our Epstein, if you think about it. And he had this huge umbrella of criminal behavior and horrible, horrible, monstrous behavior. Nobody knew about it. He had this persona of being a kind-hearted person who would give his back to society. But once the investigations came out, everybody discovered who he really was. So he is like one of the, if not the most significant human monster in English history. And so because this is like an alternate England, what they're essentially saying, we're not sure. It hasn't been 100% confirmed that this is Savile, but it seems very much like him. Everybody's saying it's him. The way he talks, the way he's dressed, it was very much like Jimmy Savile. We'll wait for confirmation from Alex Garland and Danny Boyle, but I think that's what they're doing. So if that's the case, Alfie, who thinks he's found a crew that he could join, is actually in a lot of trouble, if you think about it.
Yeah, because he says, let's me and you be pals, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the film.
Exactly.
That's wild. I had no idea about who that was or any of that. That's insane. So it seems like he'll probably be the lead of the next film, maybe.
Yeah, the big bad.
But also Alfie's character, also Spike, seems to be, maybe he'll be the lead of the whole trilogy. Who knows? Let's get to some technical stuff. Of course, 28 years later, we all know was shot on iPhone 15 Max Pros. Pretty damn good phone cameras, but obviously they fitted these with cinematic lenses. They had entire kit packages for their cameras, basically using the iPhone as a processor. But I think this was so beneficial in multiple ways, and we've talked about this multiple times. I think the first thing, it connects to the first film. 2001, 2002, the first film comes out. Let's say an apocalypse happens, and you're running out your door. Maybe you grab a little video camera that you have on your shelf to archive what's happening. You know what I mean? A DV video camera, standard def, not HD. They use the Canon XL1s in that film, which adds great grittiness to the movie and enhances it so much, I think, from a storytelling, aesthetic, and thematic motif perspective. This film, shot on IMAX Pro 15s, 20 years later, we're 23 years later from that film, more up-to-date camera that we all have in our pockets every single day. I feel like it connected us to the story a little more. It felt really interesting the way they shot it, but also I think what I read from Danny Boyle, one of the main reasons he did this was to move quickly and easily, to be able to get in these really interesting locations that, if you're carrying a full kit of gear, can be a pain in the ass. If you need an entire track, or you have your old camera set up on a dolly, it can take hours and hours just to set up shots. Whereas your iPhones, you can whip that thing around like crazy anywhere you want. It's really accessible, really easy to use, very efficient. And then they're able to do the very cool stuff like the poor man's bullet time, basically putting 20 iPhones on top of a kit at the same time, running with the alphas, or whenever the alphas get shots, and they do the great bullet time shots with the 15 iPhones. I believe they use Black Magic sometimes too, right?
Not sure.
As well as...
They did use other cameras, though. It wasn't only iPhones.
As well as one of my favorite sets that they built for this movie was the alpha chase down across the tunnel. Across the low tide...
yeah.
What was it called? What would you call it?
Canal?
Canal.
Yeah.
Not a canal. Canals of water.
It's like the natural bridge.
Natural
whatever
bridge.
It was,
I can't think of the word. But
we're not geologists, guys.
With the low tide, and they built... a stage that was over 400 feet in distance to run that entire thing. What was beautiful about it was when they're running, we have the beautiful visuals of the galaxy in the background of Jamie and Spike as they're running from the Alpha, putting 15 iPhones on a crane to run with them. Really incredible visuals. I've never seen anything like it before in my life in a movie, and I think that's what Danny Boyle is going with this movie. Because of the advantage of the iPhone being very easy and light to use, you can do things that you can't do with normal cameras, normal cinema cameras, and I think that gives him a whole new tool belt and full toolkit to experiment with and innovate and do new things, which is what Danny Boyle's always done. And I think he's such a genius. And this movie, from a filmmaking perspective, is absolutely superb.
And then you can put the camera where you could never put other cameras. There's shots, if you think about when a little Jimmy's hiding from the zombies in the opening, and he goes in like this little sewer, and you just put the camera like right on his lap.
Yeah.
And you can't get that shot with the big camera rig.
Same with the really interesting perspective shots from the lower back of the infected, especially the ones that are crawling, like the bloater kind of ones. It was so interesting. I've never seen really that kind of camera angle ever in a movie, and it's just this weird perspective of this like slow crawling monster, but you're like hanging out on the back of it, like riding it like a dragon.
The worm eaters.
Yeah.
I like to call them worm eaters. Wormies.
The wormies. But yeah, there are basically three types of zombies now. We have the alphas, which are more evolved, more intelligent, Neanderthal-esque. They seem to have not quite culture, but sort of relationships. And then also the large ones, the large bloater ones, which are really interesting, and they have a family as well. But then we have the normal runners, you could say, that are just crazed rage virus, but follow the leaders of the alpha. So there seems to be some sort of network of intelligence working with them all.
It's almost as if like different species of zombies have evolved over time, because you can imagine it was the basic rage zombies for years, and then for whatever reasons, like for example, when they were trying to explain with the character Eric why they're alphas, something about like some steroids being involved in the blood to create when certain people were bit, where certain people were infected, it affected them differently. So I really like that idea. I mean, it makes sense. There's a range of human beings' biology are arranged in a spectrum. Not every person is exactly the same in their biology and their chemistry. That's why we react differently to foods from other people, why we react differently to drugs or whatever from other people. So it makes sense that we would react differently to a rage virus infection than other people would. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And Alex Garland's work on the film was really fantastic. I loved I love the first act. I thought it was great world building. I really liked the community.
My favorite part of the movie, the first 35 minutes.
I would say my favorite part is the first 40 minutes too. It was a great setup, great characters. I loved the family conflict. I love this little world that they built. I love how it was Spike's first day, and I thought ATJ was just an absolute G and badass in this film. He's a tough guy. He's trying to raise his son to be tough in this world where they're surrounded by monsters. I like the fact that like it says it's probably Aaron Taylor Johnson's like 500th run out there. Who knows how many zombies he's killed. So they've been at it for a while, and I like the little systems they have in the community. They all seem to rely on each other. There's some great little jokes in the production design and set design. I thought they did a great job building out the world from which we came from. And then Alex Garland used some really great, intelligent writing in the third act. This film ended up not just being a zombie movie, but as a movie about death, the inevitability of death, accepting death. And that's what I think the Bone Temple is, remembering death. So the Dr. Kels, what's his name?
Kelson.
Dr. Kelson has been building for over a decade this gigantic bone temple, and we had so many theories from the marketing. We were guessing that the evolved intelligent zombies maybe were building this.
I never.
That's
thought
what
that,
I thought that
because I think because they clearly showed Rafe's character was the one involved with the temple.
Well, the marketing, it made it the way they made it the way they showed it was it looked as though Rafe was also entering the Bone Temple for the first time. The shot of him walking through.
Yeah,
I assumed that.
I guess that from
it looked like they were all discovering the Bone Temple. If that makes sense
for
from
me,
the trailer.
I assumed that he was a cult leader, and this was like something they built for spiritual, religious purposes.
My other theory was that he was going through the bones. He was going through the skulls to try and see how they're evolving, but that's not the case. He actually has a much more touching story than I was expecting, and he's someone who he's built this temple through the bones of the victims of the rage virus as a way to remember them and to remember their deaths and remember the human race and show that they were there. These people existed, and the inevitability of death it surrounds us, and that's what zombie movies are. Zombie movies are people facing death head on in the flesh. So I thought it was a very interesting third act. I know it's getting a divisive reaction, but it took a turn where I did not see coming. I did not expect.
Memento mori, remember you must die. Memento amori, remember you must love. Death and love are connected. And I think that's shown not just with, obviously, spoiler warning here.
I think we've spoiled enough.
Just to give you a heads up.
Yeah.
The death of Spike's mother, who accepts
Isla.
death like an old friend, Isla's death, because she has what Kelson believes is terminal cancer, which is without medication, without procedures, without anything, is just spreading, causing her to lose her mind and her sanity. But also I think that's connected to the infected as well, because they're evolving. And, you know, this movie at its core in a lot of ways is a coming-of-age film for Spike. You know, he's dealing with his father, who seems to be, on the surface, a good guy, but once they start to get into high-stakes situations, his flaws really come out. And he's also dealing with the lack of a partner with his wife who's lost her mind, cheating on her with somebody else. So Spike is dealing with his father's flaws and overprotectiveness, and also his strong personality traits, which are not always great, as well as the mortality of his mother. You know, he's just a kid. He's 12. He doesn't want his mother to die. He's doing his best to take care of her. So is the community. But there's nothing they can do because they don't have a doctor. They don't know what to do. They don't know what's wrong with her. They can't diagnose her. They can't treat her. So he'll do anything to save her. So similar to 28 Weeks Later, we have a main character leaving the quarantine zone or isolated zone to go discover something. 28 weeks later, they go and they find their mom by accident, but this time he's taking his mother to try to find a cure to her, to bring her to Kelson. If there's even a chance that that's possible, it's a chance he's willing to take. So I think it's a very powerful coming-of-age story for this young boy who has to quickly become a man.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'll talk about the music for a bit. I thought the music was fantastic. It has this really great punk rock infused, chaotic feeling to it and tone to it. Now, they did not use the famous theme from 28 Weeks Later and 28 Days Later, made by John Murphy.
In the House in a Heartbeat?
Yes. I think that it was probably best not to. I know some people aren't happy with it, but they did use another song from 28 Days Later. So the propulsive track when Jim is running through the city being chased by zombies.
In the opening?
They actually use that track later in this film during one of the action sequences. So they did actually use a piece of music from the first film, but it wasn't the famous theme that we're used to. I thought it actually was unexpected, but I'd say a good move to not use that theme. It's a different story. We're on a completely different playing field, and so I think they just wanted to be like, let's not connect it too much. We have new characters. We're trying to do something different with the story. So I understand why they didn't use that theme, but the music was fantastic. It really upped the ante for the suspense and the scares, and there were some pretty good scares. I think some of the zombie moments were fantastic. I gotta say, running through the house. Father and son being chased by zombies. The Alpha ordered his crew to go after them. Man, that was fantastic. He was trying to get Alfie up the attic. I was like, Aaron Taylor Johnson's totally dead. I was like, he's so dead. He's going to die getting his son up there. And man, I was just like on the edge of my seat. The music, the insane editing, the amazing camera angles. It was such a great sequence. And then the canal run. No, we know it's not a canal. Whatever that bridge, the natural bridge formation.
I wrote it down somewhere.
Whatever that is. That I thought he was dead there too. I thought ATJ was he was gonna get taken out by the Alpha. I was like, there's no fucking way he's not dying. And I'm so glad he survived. It seems like we're definitely gonna be getting Aaron Taylor Johnson in the second or third film. He's not confirmed in the cast. I've looked on everything I can find on the internet. He's not on the cast list anywhere yet. I'm guessing you gotta bring him back. I think he has a story that he has to say. He needs to reconnect with his son. And I think that will create a great emotional arc for both characters going forward in the series.
Causeway is what connects.
Thank you.
Holy Island, which if you look at it from the sky, looks like Africa.
Oh.
To me, I thought it felt like the shape of Africa, which I think connects to the origins of humanity, which is really interesting.
Whoa.
Now, I would like to talk about evolution because it seems like what Alex Garland is doing with the writing with this film, now that we have technically, obviously 3, but I think really just 2 spiritual connected movies. We have the evolution of the infected in this film, which we can only assume will get better and at a faster rate than humans because humans took so long to evolve. And if they're in their Neanderthal phase, we can assume in the next film or the film after that, they'll start to form social groups, social hierarchies, communication. Obviously, they do communicate, and the alphas are the most intelligent. But they are creating families. They are procreating, which is really interesting. So the infected are evolving, while humanity seems to be devolving. Humanity is becoming more monstrous, and I think that they wanted to show this not only through Jamie Spike's father and his horrible character traits and how aggressive he is, how excited he is for his son to be killing, which, I think that, of course, you have to train your son to kill infected to survive, but to get so much joy out of it is definitely a red flag for me, to be so excited about it, to not really give a crap at all what you're killing. Of course, from his perspective, they almost wiped out humanity in England. They're monsters to him. Of course they are. But still, I would always imagine, I understand that so many people hunt, but they still pay respects to the animals they kill in different cultures in different ways. So the lack of respect for what they're killing, especially for his son, is only going to give him bad character traits as well, if that continues. But also the de-evolution of society where, yes, we're in this sort of Holy Island is this small community, almost archaic, medieval to an extent, bows and arrows, specific rules.
Stone Age.
Yeah, Stone Age. Yes, they've done the best they can with what resources they could find. But I think one of the most showing scenes about the de-evolution of humanity and the creation of the monstrosity of human beings and showing that even more throughout these films is when Spike gets back from their perilous journey when they almost die the next day, and there's that party for Spike. It almost feels like a nightmare, the way they shot it. The humans seem like monsters, drinking, being crazy, being chaotic, very contrasty. It feels like a horror scene to an extent. And for me, that's Alex Garland and Danny Boyle showing that humanity is becoming more monstrous, whereas the monsters are becoming more human.
Literally. With the
Literally.
baby that's born.
Yeah.
Human and uninfected.
Now we'll get to that baby, I think,
Baby talk?
after our intermission. Before we continue, the best way to support Raiders of the Lost Podcast is to leave those 5-star. No, it's become a patron today at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast. We have access to weekly bonus episodes there for you, as well as access to our Discord, exclusive content only on Patreon that patrons have access to. Go to patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast today. Sign up for as little as $2 a month to be a member of Patreon, as well as leaving those 5-star ratings and reviews on Spotify and Apple are integral to our success. They help us get seen by new people. Our audiences will grow and episodes will be pushed to new people if we have more ratings. Of course, that's how it works. So follow us on Spotify. Leave those 5-star ratings and reviews, Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I'll read a review out in just a minute. Subscribe on YouTube as well. It's so important for us to get big on YouTube. We're growing every single day. Instagram, follow us. TikTok, Twitter. Engage with our content. That's how we get these great jobs. We just interviewed the cast of Superman. We wouldn't be able to do that if we weren't getting great engagement in our content. So all of you people who are commenting, sharing in your stories, thank you so much. That is so helpful and important for us going forward, as well as sharing us with your family and friends. Share our episodes. Word of mouth is the best way for a podcast to grow. So share this episode with anyone you know who loves horror.
Check out that poster behind James.
Pretty
28
awesome.
years later, backlit. What a banging poster. Brought to you by our friends at movieposters.com, the #1 place to get all of your posters online. Be sure to use the promo code Raiders10, which will always get you 10% off your order, and use the affiliate link in the description of this episode or our social media bios. That gives James and I a little cut of the action. They have pretty much every film and TV show imaginable in their poster library, as well as all sorts of sizes, framing, and even backlighting that one, like that one behind James. They even have really cool collector's items like original movie posters from back in the day, original lobby cards, and movie stills from your favorite classic films, as well as tons of posters for all the fans of international foreign films. They got you covered for all of your poster needs. Beautiful prints, very affordable prices, made even more affordable thanks to the coupon code Raiders10. Be sure to use that code at movieposters.com for all your poster needs.
All right, let's get into our intermission, then we'll get back to the episode of 28 Years Later. Are you ready for the movie quote competition?
Ready.
Here we go. I always thought that I was the only alien in this high school. Oh, I'm sorry. I always thought the only alien in this high school was me.
The faculty?
Yeah.
Nice.
Nailed it. Nice job.
Nice.
Elijah.
Here's my quote. If you want the ultimate, you've got to be willing to pay the ultimate price. It's not tragic to die doing what you love.
Stumped.
Point Break. Bodhi.
Hell yeah. The ultimate. I am an FBI agent. I can't describe what
You
I'm
sound like a
feeling.
pop punk singer.
Oh yeah, that I went a little too pop. I am an FBI agent.
It's literally. It's pretty good.
Thanks. Movie release year time. Anthony, what year did 30 Days of Night come out?
2006.
Very close. 2007 was the correct answer. You lose. Time to die. Just kidding.
What year did Lethal Weapon come out?
Good question. 82?
87.
Oof. Huh.
Nah, it was okay. It was kind of close.
Interesting. I can't believe that's almost a 90s movie.
No, almost 3 years more than it's a 90s movie.
You can do math.
It's almost a 2000s movie.
I didn't know you could read.
It's really close to being a 2000s
Movie
movie.
pop quiz time. Let's get it going. Get out of here. Just kidding. In Underworld, what is the name of the vampire lichen crossbreed?
Hybrid.
He's correct.
Yes.
It is a hybrid.
Nice.
Nice job.
Took me a second.
We saw the movie a lot when we were younger.
Yeah, we watched it a
That's a
lot.
banger.
It was great.
Absolute banger.
What is Gary Busey's name in Point Break?
Oh shit. Oh man, what is his name? It's so funny. I know Johnny Utah, of course, but
Congrats.
Daniels,
No.
fucking Steve.
Nah.
I don't know.
Pappas.
Pappas. Haven't seen it in a while.
That's evident.
Well, you know what's evident is I would love to hear some unsubscribes.
I got you covered, man. First up, Ocean Roars. I woke up this bright Sunday morning with a spot of hope. Grabbed my mobile to listen to the Movie Daddies, but no episode. Unsubscribed. Movie news on Mondays now, guys.
Yeah, we're going to play around with our schedule. So
Yeah.
what's cool is we're going to be doing 2 movie news episodes every week.
Lots of news. You guys are going to go nuts. You're going to have news coming out your ears. Marshall, great episode. Unsubscribed. I love the simple ones. Then we got Chris Steinheiser. Hey guys, didn't Oppenheimer win Best Picture too?
What did we say?
We said that Rocky was like the only Best Picture winner on our list that we made, and it was Oppenheimer's there. Since you claim there's only one Rocky to have won Best Picture among the summer blockbuster list, I must unsubscribe. Summer blockbusters episode.
Whoops.
Yikes. Also, from Marshall, amazing episode, but I must unsubscribe because Memories of Murder is definitely not streaming on Hulu, James. Did you tell someone to watch that on Hulu and it wasn't even on Hulu?
Memories of Murder?
Yeah.
Maybe. Well, maybe it was an old...
Oh, here come the excuses.
They lose licensing all the time.
Oh, yeah. They do. Uh-huh.
Licensing changes all the time.
I'm sure
man.
it was there, right, James? Right, Marshall? Wink, wink. Skip 2006. Jaws 1971. Dudes, it's 1975.
Did we say that?
You did.
Wow.
I didn't correct you, though, so I'm on the blame, too.
Yeah, because I like know it's 75.
Here's a good one. Brad Lasky. We won't talk about the Avatar movies. They came out in December. I understand. 5 minutes later, talks about The Force Awakens released in December. Unsubscribe.
I was waiting for that.
Definitely not a summer blockbuster. Also, Tyler, Avatar movies always come out in the winter, so they're not on the list. The Force Awakens on this list. I'm going to unsubscribe.
Who did that? Was that you or me?
I think it was you.
I think it was you.
I think it was Juno.
Who made the summer blockbuster list?
Both
We
of
both
us.
did, yeah.
We both contributed.
Yeah. But I think
We
you
both
did that one.
contributed. Me?
Yeah.
Moi. We'll never know, man.
We'll never know. There's no evidence.
There's no way to know.
There is no way to know.
Ziggy, unsubscribe because Anthony never listens to James.
Thank you, Ziggy.
Tim, unsubscribe. The Force Awakens came out in December. Which is not a summer month. I remember that because there was a bully that threw a yellow snowball on my mouth after I got out of the movie.
Oh my God.
Poor guy. Sorry, man. Next up, we had an old clip about Doctor Strange post. Our YouTube Shorts is posting old TikTok clips. It's like this connecting thing we have going on, and it was the unboxing for Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
So Mika wrote, guys, this movie came out years ago. Can't believe you call yourselves film fans without knowing that. I have unsubscribed, but I guess I will resubscribe just to listen to your review eventually.
Thanks, Micah.
Yeah. Tommy Stark. No movie news this week. In my Ryan Gosling's voice from Place Beyond the Pines. Unsubscribed! Put the episode on Spotify now! Get the episode in the air! Sorry, guys. Mondays. That's it for this week's Unsubscribes. Be sure to submit yours soon.
All right, we have a great 5-star written review from Kyle H4203. Just quote unquote 2 film guys. I've been listening to this podcast since 2020 and realized I've never left a written review. This podcast is amazing. If you are a lover of film and TV, you have to listen to this podcast. I found them back in 2020 when I was leaving for college, and their podcast legitimately helped me through the drive there and back. I've been an active listener every week ever since. They sparked a love for film that I never had before, and now get so much joy out of seeing new movies and telling others the facts and discussions that happen here in this podcast. They have no agenda and don't nitpick movies the whole time, but rather celebrate them and show their love for filmmaking. The brotherly banter makes it so funny and enjoyable to listen to. It makes you feel like you are one of them and in the room with them. You will not regret listening. However, if they keep spreading these lies that they are twins and not just one person, I will have to unsubscribe. Kyle H, thank you so much for that wonderful written review on Apple Podcasts. Hope your college has been going great Thanks for listening to us, and we're so glad you discovered us.
We're still getting away with our editing.
Yeah.
That's the one person.
It's really, like I said,
Don't
we do
tell.
mocap. Andy Serkis plays Anthony. Movie streaming. What's your recommendation?
Another Earth on Max. Very good sci-fi movie.
I'm going with Chronicle, also on Max.
Another good sci-fi movie.
Very good sci-fi superhero movie. All right, let's get back into 28 years later, and we left you with a cliffhanger talking about The Baby, which is birthed by an infected woman who's pregnant, who clearly got pregnant from the alpha, and his...
She survived.
I don't know how. Damn, bro. Big dick player.
Swinging from your knees.
Player. Again, they're prosthetics. But this pregnant, infected woman gives birth to a baby who seems to not be infected at all.
She doesn't look infected to me. Maybe it's in her DNA, though. We'll
My
find
guess
out.
is she's going to be, or he, or whatever the baby is going to be the cure to the virus.
Oh, my God.
Sort of like Ellie in The Last of Us is the cure, because we discover in the show the origin of her immunity from her mother getting bit and infected while she's about to give birth to the baby. And of Ellie, same thing happens here, it seems like, but a little different. But this baby is not infected from what we can see. Probably, of course, similar to 28 weeks later, like the mother is immune but carries the virus, just like you can carry any virus and not infect people or not, or you can be asymptomatic and have a virus. So it seems like she's asymptomatic, or he, whatever the baby is. However, who knows
It's a girl.
If the baby's able to infect somebody or not, we'll find out. But my assumption is this baby's going to be the key to the future.
It is a girl.
It is a girl. Okay.
Did you watch the movie? They said it. She said it.
I was
She
jet
was like,
lagged.
"It's a girl. Don't kill it."
I was jet lagged.
I gotta say that Eric character was hilarious.
The Swede?
Yeah, the Swede. It was a pretty fun little 10 minutes. I think it was some good comedy in this.
Can I talk about my main critique of this movie? And it connects to the Swede, the
Tell me about
actor.
it. Tell me
the
about it.
character. So I agree. There's for 10 minutes of this movie, you're laughing your butt off.
Yeah.
It's actually very light. I think it's just to lull us into this sense of security. I think it's classic horror movie 101.
Yeah, then he gets his head ripped off.
Exactly. However, I will say, the UK's been infected for 28 years. We have this community who's living very isolated. But it seems like anyone on the mainland who's a human, they don't shut the fuck up. Everyone's just walking around, screaming, laughing, talking so loud. The Swede is laughing his ass off and screaming. Even Jamie, Spike's father, is being very loud. Dr. Kelson seems to not have problems really with the infected. It's like he's living among them. Maybe they're less
He's
intrusive
disguised.
of his
Yeah.
Of his territory. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe the skulls keep them away. I don't know. But obviously he's been living there for so long out in the open. So I will say that there's probably way less infected, but still I feel like the noise factor, it wouldn't help. It would just bring so many zombies constantly to anyone who's there.
I will say, yeah, I agree that everyone's talking a bit too much.
Fucking, I'd be like so quiet. I'd be like,
Yeah.
I'd be tiptoeing
I'd be
everywhere.
like, Eric, shut the fuck up. Dad, shut up, Dad. You're right. I think that there is quite a lot of talking when, you're behind enemy lines.
Loud talking.
Yeah, I totally agree. But it's a movie.
It's a movie. Exactly.
It's a movie, and it does have some great thrills. That chase sequence of the zombie pack chasing them across the hilly valley, fantastic. It was so good. I loved all the action in this movie. They really knocked it out of the park, and the scares were good. I like the little worm eaters. They're scary in a different way.
Low slows.
Low slows.
They're called.
I like wormies better. I'm gonna call them
Wormies?
wormies because they eat worms. Also interesting seeing zombies eating something that's not human,
Yeah.
eating the worms,
Evolving.
and then also eating the fish. We saw a bunch of zombies mowing down on that fish that was
The
cooked.
bear that was
and the bear
carcass.
So very much not only going after human beings, but going after animals too. I think it checks out for what it is, and it's not like the zombies we know. It's more monsters than in animals.
And the alphas seem to be making trophies. The bear head on the tree is an odd thing to see. Jamie's never seen anything like that before when they discover it. He's kind of freaked out by it. Like, this is not good. This is an intelligent zombie that's doing something like this, as well as pulling the head and spinal column out of the kills that it gets, that also seems to be like a trophy-esque kind of thing. Very similar, obviously, Predator. It seems like a reference to that. Another little con I have, not huge, but it feels like this movie had such a strong opening 35 minutes, but then it felt like it was really just setting up future films to an extent. It felt like it was laying the foundation of several story narrative threads, whether it be the pregnant zombie, the baby zombie, the bone temple, Dr. Kelson and his iodine, how that probably will be connected and talked about future. Alfie meeting the Jimmies in general, which so fun. Like, I wish we got more of them, but I understand they're setting up for a movie, obviously. So it seems to me like most of the narrative threads in this movie are all just foundations for future films.
I will say we live in this era in movie making where the franchise is king, and the ending scene, even though I enjoyed the Jimmies in the fight and it was really eclectic and I thought it was just like super, super silly, it did feel like a post-credit scene.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it really didn't feel like the movie had a proper ending, because it was like Alfie mid journey. It's like the end of Fellowship. He's about to set off the two of them, but this time it's Alfie about to set off on this journey by himself. And then they show up. It wasn't really you would say a real resolution to this story. So I will say there is a drawback there where it didn't feel like the movie had an ending.
But I do really enjoy the story between when Dr. Kelson gets in there with Isla and Alfie, which I wish Jamie was more in the second half of this film, because I think he's such a strong character and really interesting, and obviously throws a wrench in a lot of stuff and is a great catalyst. But this really great blend of emotions of mortality, this morbid situation of this bone temple of skulls, but this beautiful tenderness of accepting death and fate. And Isla, at times, she is herself, rarely, but for the most part, she's very disjointed mentally. She's all over the place. She's scared. She has a horrible memory. She forgets something she just talked about 5 minutes before. But when she's there, it's really special. And even she doesn't remember when she's herself. It seems like she's multiple people because of her illness. But to willingly accept death, and then Kelson, in this sort of beautiful, morbid way of paying homage to her and cleaning the skull and handing it to Alfie. I think that was one of the most special images of the film, as well as saying the Latin lines to him, like I said at the beginning of the episode, which were
Memento mori, memento amore.
Yeah, memento mori, yeah, memento amore. Like, remember you must die, remember you must love. It was a beautiful image of him handing Alfie the skull of his mother. Very morbid to us, but in this world, an outbreak, a rage virus, all you've known is isolation and death. It's a very special way, I think, to pay respect to the death and respect to your mother. And I thought it was really sweet and tender.
Placing her skull at the top.
Yeah.
I thought it had a lot of resonance. It was very powerful. But I will say I agree. I would have liked to see Jamie. They had the line in the movie that basically built this rule in where there's no rescue missions no matter what. Once you go out, nobody's ever going to come back to get you. I would have liked for Jamie to go out after his son. Once the sun set and he didn't return, I would have liked for Jamie to be like, fuck the rules, I'm going out after him. That's my probably my biggest criticism of the film.
Yeah, and because he just gets put on ice.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, not a great thing to do to one of your best characters in the movie. It's not like that's never happened before. I mean, Place Beyond the Pines is a great example of the best character of the movie not making it through the halfway point, but it works, and I think it worked really well. But this is different because this character is still alive and literally just gets put in a cooler for an hour. I forgot he was in the movie. I kept thinking, where's Aaron Taylor Johnson in this movie? I thought was he the father? So I think
maybe it could have been a little more emotional resonance if he found them, but then you don't have Alfie going on his own, or Spike going on his own, meaning the Jimmies. So it could be a great setup for the second film where it's Jamie has to somehow overcome Jimmy and his gang to rescue his son.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's obviously true, and I totally agree with that.
And they're setting up Jimmy to be probably the worst monster that we've ever seen in this film franchise. Despicable And from what I read, both from Jack O'Connell and Alex Garland, saying that he's been the last 20 years, he's done unfathomably horrible things over the course of the dystopia, and he like his history from the day one of the rage virus to when we see him in the film. Apparently, it's just horrible what he's done.
It might be one of those situations where this person found the perfect world for him to live and do all the horrible, dubious things he wants to do and not have to hide it.
That's why he says it would be our pleasure to attack, to fight and kill these zombies. Like for them, this world has become a playground.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Now, after watching, obviously I've seen the first film 15 times probably. We watched 28 Weeks Later recently. We did an episode on both of those about 2 months ago to refresh our memories, as well as for our audience as well, for connected themes and motifs. Now, what do you think we can expect from the next film, Bone Temple, which comes out again January 2026?
We're going to see where the Jimmies come from. They come from somewhere because they were clean and they were well-dressed, and so they look like they live comfortably. It doesn't look like they've been scavenging.
And clearly that roadway has been
the blocked road.
Blocked by tons of rocks, so who knows if they created that.
I'm guessing he is either the leader or he's a big personality in whatever community they come from, but they definitely come from somewhere safe because of how clean they looked and how well kept they were. So they probably live... They're probably part of if they're not their own traveling gang, they're probably part of a community and they're a gang within that community. But I think that Jimmy could be a leader in a kind of like a boss of basically like this criminal underworld where I'm guessing they're abusing human beings in monstrous ways.
So looking on the Wikipedia page of Bone Temple, the next 28 years later film, which I believe that's going to be the franchise title now, like 28 years later, versus like Jurassic World's the new title. Yeah. Alfie's coming back, obviously. Aaron Taylor Johnson's coming back as Jamie. Jack O'Connell, his character, Sir Jimmy Crystal, he must have knighted himself, is a cult leader, of course. Then the rest of the main cast that's been announced seem to be members of the cult, as well as Ray Fiennes will come back as Dr. Ian Kelson, as well as a couple other characters. Plus, Cillian Murphy is confirmed to be in Bone Temple.
Danny Boyle said that this story will converge on Cillian Murphy's Jim. So I cannot wait. And he said that in an interview, so 100% confirmed.
And Nia DaCosta is directing this film, which was written by Alex Garland again. Nia DaCosta most recently did The Marvels, as well as Hedda, Candyman, Little Woods. So we will see. She also did an episode of Miss Marvel. I think this movie, of course, it's interesting now. It'll be the first time a non-UK... Well, actually, no. 28 Weeks Later was done by a Mexican director, right?
Yeah, or Spanish
director. Now, obviously, but we still have Alex Garland writing, which means that we still have that DNA of British culture, which I think is really strong to this franchise, which is why I think this one connects so well to the first film. Whereas the second film didn't really feel like a British movie. It didn't feel like we were in the UK at all, besides the accents.
There are a lot of Americans in that movie, too. So
yeah, and I understand the situation. You know, NATO and America have taken over.
It didn't feel like culturally significant. Like, you felt the culture in the first film. You didn't feel British culture in the second film. And then you really felt British culture in this film as well. So that's Danny Boyle and Alex Garland first and foremost.
And I think Anthony Dodd Mantle, who is the cinematographer on this movie with, the vision of Danny Boyle, did such a superb job with this film. Shooting IMAX Pro 15 Maxes, really interesting way to film a movie. But they really...
Apple, you said IMAX?
What did I say?
You said IMAX Pro.
No, I said Max.
You said IMAX.
Did I?
Yeah.
I wish they were IMAX. The Apple iPhone Max Pro 15s as your cameras, really interesting, and obviously I think worked. But the visuals of this movie, I think, were just so stunning and astounding. I saw visuals I've never seen done before in my entire life. I was locked in on so many sequences just because of the sheer beauty of the aesthetics they were capturing and the unique, interesting angles they were able to get with such efficient handheld small cameras. And obviously you have a light footprint when you're shooting like this. You can do pretty much anything anytime you want or anywhere you want. And it really, I think, worked to the benefit of the film, and obviously kept production costs down a bit, I'm sure.
Also, the best editing I've seen all year.
Yeah, really superb.
This is the best edited film, and I don't think another film can top the editing that was done on this.
This movie's already hit. It's already grossed over $100 million at the box office. It's been out for less than 2 weeks now, and its budget was $60 million. So I'm sure It'll probably end up close to $150, $200 million globally, which is exactly what they want from Sony Pictures. This is going to be their new sort of, I think go-to main IP staple going forward, since the the Sony Marvel Cinematic Universe of heroes characters, whatever the fuck their verse was called, did not work out at all. It seems like this will be their annual keep the lights on franchise movie.
Way more interesting.
Yeah, I
so
agree.
I think they did a good move buying this from Danny Boyle and Alex Garland. Everybody bidded for it, and then Sony got it. I think it could make really good money, and then set things up for a very good, respectable performance for this franchise.
Yeah, overall. Also, the world building was superb and fantastic. And, I love horror. I love this franchise. I like the second film. I really enjoy it. Not as much as the first. I think it's just, the first film is just such a special film.
So good.
I don't think it'll ever be topped in the zombie genre for this franchise and this IP. But, they can do the best to get there. And I think this is a really good foundation for this upcoming trilogy. And Alex Garland, so glad he's back writing. I think he did a great job with the script. And Danny Boyle is the fucking man. Love the guy.
So good.
Always locked in whenever he's got a movie coming out. So really great crew, really great team, and really interesting way to shoot a movie. And it just looks stunning. Sound design was awesome. Overall, excellent movie.
One of the best legacy sequels.
Absolutely.
It is one of the best. It's up there.
23 years later. We got 28 years later.
28 years later sounds better.
No, I'm just saying 23 years later, we got 28 years
I know,
later.
I'm just saying, like, the number 28 just works.
Yeah, but I'm just saying a fact that it
I know,
came
I'm
out.
just saying, like, using the number 28, there's something about the number 28 just sounds cool.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Like, 23 days later, not that interesting.
No, it's not.
24 days, nah.
I think you're reading way into me.
25 days later.
You're reading too much into me saying that.
No, I'm just saying.
I
that
thought you said
I'm just saying Alex Garland picked the perfect number for the title.
I think so too.
I'm just saying, like, 23 days later, doesn't have that good of a ring to it. 29 days later, but 28 days. Oh, there's something about 28 days later.
I think he picked it because it's 4 weeks.
Did he?
That's my guess. Because that's 28 days later.
I know 7 times 4. I know.
No, let me.
I know that.
Let me bounce this back because it sounds better than 4 weeks later.
It does sound way better.
It sounds way better than 4 weeks later.
28 days later. It just rolls off the tongue.
You know what I'm looking forward to? 28 centuries later.
The futuristic sci-fi one.
That'll be good.
That'd be cool.
All right, that wraps our breakdown of 28 years later. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. Become a patron today at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Leave those 5-star ratings and reviews on Spotify and Apple. And take care, everybody.
See you next time.
This episode of Raiders of the Lost Podcast was executive produced by our chosen one patrons, Nicholas Martin and Jacob Kossler. Thank you so much for the support. Raiders of the Lost Podcast is a mirror image production. Sound mixing done by Jacob Kossler. Opening music by Chase Jackson.